With Spinnaker free, the Gungan Grand Army was growing bigger. But we still need our beasts to carry weapons and shields. The evil mechanics had captured the beasts for killing and skinning. As the Queen and her big brains planned a big nasty, we saw Gungans attacking Camp 6 to rescue our animals and complete this grand Gungan army. We have the troopers, but now we need animals to run the big shields and boomers.
Many beasts were taken to Camp 6, boss. We should bust them out of there and bring them to our camp.
That's the good plan.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Star Wars Galactic Battlegrounds, the Boss Nass campaign, where today we are focusing on the liberation of Harte Secur, which is the 5th mission within the Boss Nass campaign. And a little bit of backstory behind this mission. As the Gungans were fleeing the mayhem at Gunga, the Trade Federation rounded up their Fambaa herds to slaughter and skin them for profit. These creatures form the backbone of the Gungan army and must be recovered. They are being held at Camp 6, near the occupied stronghold of Harte Secur. Sorry, I'm trying to read this off of a screenshot that I grabbed of the Objective Intelligence Reconnaissance menu. Recover the Fambaas so that the Gungans can outfit them with shield generators and weaponry. And as you can see, we're kind of moving to set up some defenses, which I will explain in just a moment. But once the Fambaas are safe, the Gungans will need to liberate Harte Secur. This show of force will lure the bulk of the Trade Federation army out of feed to battle at the grassy plains. So here I am kind of moving the bulk of my force, the bulk of the force that you get at the start of the game, down to the only land connection, or it's technically a swamp connection, or marshland connection. I can't remember the name of the actual terrain, as it's been a while since I've played around in the terrain editor. But because the game starts us off at tech level 4, although you can get fortresses at tech level 3, I believe. This mission, it took me about 3 or 4 times to do, and I actually completed it on the 3rd recording, but unfortunately the recording kind of stopped halfway through because I ran out of space, which is unfortunate, but it happens sometimes, and I've decided at some point that I will need to go through and I'll need to clear out some space so that I can continue doing recording stuff. But as you can see, I've put down a fortress, and we're setting this fortress up and garrisoning all of our troops that we sent down here in it, because what this fortress will do is it will act as like a solid defense between the occupation force of Harte Secur, or Harte Secur trade occupation. It acts as like a barrier between them, Camp 6, so they can no longer kind of attack us at the same time, but it also opens up a large amount of space for us to extend our forces. So here I'm going to just set up a shield generator, and the reason why I went for a fortress is because the fortress has got a lot more health, it deals a lot more damage, and it can fire on both land and air. Sorry. You can fire on both land and air targets. They can also fire on seafaring vessels as well, but that's not really the important part. The important part is that it can target kind of most of the... Well, it can target anything that the Trade Federation tries to throw at us. And with the shield generator up and running, we've effectively doubled the hit points of the fortress, which means that it can last a lot longer. I believe I've talked about this in a previous episode, but the Gungans have got this special ability where their structures will automatically recover hit points if they're out of combat for a certain period of time. So combining that kind of with the whole, having a shield generator in place, it allows for a very solid defense, especially if you're not having to worry about like the enemy trying to outflank you or anything like that. We're playing against an AI. The AI is not going to be trying to do anything tricky, unlike say a human player who might see that you've set up defenses in a choke point and will go, okay, well, we'll just go around, because why wouldn't we? But we're not facing a human player, we're facing an AI who, of course, because we've set up a fortress, and at this point it is just one fortress, because we've set up that fortress on essentially their doorstep, they're going to attack it fairly regularly. But it also means that we've only got one place that we have to defend, which is the most important part, I think, of the whole, of everything that's kind of going on. And here I'm looking at what I could do to maybe increase the effectiveness of the fortress. For whatever reason, those aircraft have decided that, no, they're not going to go any further, they're just going to sit there. While the infantry and the destroyer droids continue to try and attack the fortress. And it kind of took me a while to figure out, hey, actually, in this situation, being really aggressive, like before I had kind of started by setting up walls around my base and was like, okay, well, this will help us hold them off. But that gives Camp 9 a chance to get themselves set up, and once Camp 9 is set up, it's really hard to dig them out. They're essentially like a tick. And I think in the first recording where I was successful, I had set up a couple of fortresses actually. Here I am building a second fortress. But I had set up a second fortress. I set up two fortresses on a point on the mainland that connects Camp 9 and Harte Secur. Not this section of land, but the one above it. In this kind of general area here. I have built the pummels because there is a small enemy camp just to the east, like kind of northeast of Harte Secur, but it only produces ships, mechs, and some, I believe it does produce some fortress units on occasion. And it was actually really the thing that stopped me from being able to push any further, because if I didn't destroy that, I was leaving myself fairly exposed. And to be honest, I have actually left, by advancing as quickly as I did, I have left myself incredibly exposed, and I probably should have paid for it, but I didn't. So it's kind of not too bad. Generally speaking, I would just hunker down and build out my forces to kind of attack the enemy. But I am upgrading my targeting sensors to the final tier so that all of my buildings and infantry, or I think actually it's just the buildings, can see and fire just that extra bit further. Which is quite helpful, particularly for the pair of fortresses down blocking Harte Secur. As you can see, those turrets made fairly quick work of it, of the anti-air cruiser that was sitting there. I do spend quite a bit of time. This recording was originally an hour and 16 minutes long, although Battlegrounds was telling me that it actually took me 2 hours to play this. But as I went through to like kind of edit the video, and I did watched through the entire video, I wasn't actually seeing anything like I wasn't seeing anything that I hadn't done. But here I am taking out the small encampment that's sitting here, which frees up a lot more space. It frees up a lot more resources that we can then take advantage of. One thing that I could have probably done better is I probably could have spent a chunk of time setting up like a navy. And this navy I would have used to blockade any other parts of Harte Secur that the enemy might have tried to get troops out of. But I mean, as I mentioned, this recording was kind of already long enough, and as of recording it, it was kind of the night before, like a couple of hours before I needed to be going to bed because I had work early the following morning. But yeah, that base kind of like pummels, especially heavy pummels. If there's nothing there to really counter them, they're quite effective against most structures. And I would like to just say, like, as I was recording this episode, I kind of noticed that just a group of Gungan warriors really effective at taking out like Jedi apprentices and potentially also Jedi knights, and they kind of just rip through everything. Like, I don't know why you would need like anything else, you know, just if you can produce enough Gungan infantry, it's really just a case of keep producing them, because they're really cheap, and like this is just like something for all infantry just across the board. They're really cheap and it's really easy to just produce. Like they get, you know, they're really quick to just pump out, especially if you can build like, you know, a couple of troop centers. Obviously, the more troop centers you have, the quicker you can set up. The quicker, you know, you can produce them. Obviously, you need the infrastructure to support that. So particularly, you need to have the ability to produce the carbon and the food. Although, if you have, you know, 2 or 3 nurseries full of like nurse or banthas, it's generally not too bad. Or, you know, if you have like either, I think it's the holocrons give you Nova crystals, if you put them inside a Jedi temple, or if you have like an ally, or you have like an enemy who built a spaceport, particularly an enemy, if you can like destroy all of the enemy's other structures except for that spaceport, it becomes quite easy to just kind of connect a little supply line between the spaceport of your own and the enemy spaceport, which you'll notice that I do quite a lot. When I notice that there is an opponent who has built a spaceport, particularly if I have multiple opponents, like here I have Harte Secur and I have Camp 6. And so what I can do is I can kind of set up defenses blocking Camp 6 from coming in and trying to take... well, first off, I can stop them from taking the resources from the spaceport, but I can also stop them from, you know, stopping me. I have built an air cruiser because I noticed, like, yes, the infantry were quite effective at their job, but there is only so much that they can do. Contrary to what you just saw them do to that poor pummel. You'll notice that the air cruisers, I will quite often put them on hold fire, or I think it's don't move. Essentially, I tell them don't react unless I order you to do otherwise. Simply because air cruisers are really powerful and they have like a large, like they fire and they have like a large area of effect when they fire. So it's really not a great time when a couple of infantry get among like a group of your own structures, and you have maybe either unshielded structures, or you have like a group of troops that you were trying to, like an army that you were trying to put together, or even if you have like 2 or 3 air cruisers and they all just fire at once at the 2 enemy troops who had gone past everything else, and they essentially like annihilate your own structures. So I generally speaking, I try to keep the air cruisers on hold fire, just so that they're not accidentally destroying. Well, first of all, so that they're not accidentally destroying my own stuff, but so that they're not destroying like enemy targets that could prove useful. For example, the spaceport that's over there. And I think you'll find, like, you'll notice a couple of times there will be like brief moments where I'll have the troops selected, the repeater troopers. I'll have them selected, and they will. I will have them on the same option that I have got the air cruiser set to, while they're attacking Camp 6, just because they are really effective at just tearing through. They're really effective at just tearing through basically everything. And as you can see here, this fortress is really holding its ground. Like, you can kind of make out, well, if you're on like a bigger screen, you'll be able to make out that there are quite a few bodies, or I guess debris, from where we have taken out, I believe it's a combination of just infantry and the mounted troopers. These poor workers, like, they're doing their best, and I'm just like harassing them with a single air cruiser. But I mean, if you're going to surround your buildings and workers, this is kind of what happens. Particularly once like, I, typically speaking, if I have to start off at tech level 1 or 2, I will hunker down and I will stay hunkered down. I might send out a troop, a troop or 2, or even a scout that you'll start off with, to scout out any potential choke points, particularly if I'm playing on like a river map, and I will set up defenses along those choke points, because generally speaking, AI don't go, like, they won't use ships or air transports to move their troops around unless they absolutely have to. So usually what I do is I kind of just, I hunker down on these like small choke points, and because I can just sit here, I'll do that. I'll sit there, and it's like, well, what you gonna do? Something that I don't do quite so well, I guess, is the management of my workers. I'll often just kind of set them to do their thing, and I'll let them do it until I start to suffer problems from them kind of just I've run out of resources, so I have to go look and be like, okay, well, why do I no longer have any resources? But here I believe I've got something like, oh, there goes the command center. I have something like 30 or 40 troops, repeater troops, and like, worker dead. I set them up here, and they just immediately, like, I've got them to hold their ground, and look at that. They just tear through the workers like there's nothing. I don't think I get them to retarget, but I did consider it very briefly. And I kind of got the air cruiser sitting there doing its thing. Another worker potentially trying to get away. But you can see occasionally like a Gungan will throw something and it will kind of miss, or a unit will die and all of the other projectiles will just keep on going. It's really, really fun when you have that many troops that they fire and that's it, nothing left. But yeah, I do send the air cruiser in, and I don't actually consider what happens. Like, I don't care, like I send the air cruiser through and I'm like, just do your thing. You might take some of them, you might not. I kind of just ignore him and let him do his own thing. And like, look at that, 30 infantry and the Jedi, the Sith Apprentice doesn't make it very far. At the Jedi Temple, which was technically already fairly damaged, falls pretty quickly as well. But with that said, that kind of signifies the fall of Camp 6. I'm just moving the infantry in to just finish wiping up the non-production buildings. And, obviously freeing the Fambaa so that we can start sending them.
Good work! Now we shall have the animals we shall need for the big nasty battle.
Boss, we just spotted a town called Harte Secur to the south. Tis filled with many Gungan and Naboo prisoners.
Perhaps we should show the mechanics a piece of the Gungan Grand Army. Then they will be quicker to come out of feed and meet us in our battle.
So as you can see, we will maybe not see at the moment because we're currently focusing on the fortress and we're trying to draw these aircraft out so that we can kind of destroy them and start maybe advancing a little bit further into Harte Secur itself. It's really amusing to me because they try, they really do, but they're not making it very far. But as you can see, we now have Fambaas outfitted with shield generators. Outfitted with shield generators and heavy weaponry. Now these are the Gungan's unique shield Fambaas, the ones obviously with the shields, and also their mechs. I believe they are heavy mechs. Yes, it would appear that they are heavy mechs. And you're like quite powerful units, to be honest. I do briefly consider loading all of my troops up into the mechs, into the Fambaas. But I decided, actually, no, we're just going to advance and we're going to push very aggressively against the enemy. Something that I did wrong with the initial attack is that I didn't add any anti-aircraft, either troops or heavy mechs. And that kind of acts as a slight downfall. Well, not necessarily a downfall, but rather it's a big reason why the first attack, the first wave of troops doesn't make it very far, because they have to stop and contend with aircraft that they can't shoot down. Because unlike the Empire, every other civilization can't get their heavy mechs to target aircraft. Obviously, we'll talk about that when we get to playing with the Empire. And I think, well, we've got one more mission for Boss Nass, and then I believe there's like 6 missions for the Rebel Alliance, which we will be doing after we complete Boss Nass's campaign. I think they have their own grassy plain or Theed mission. Actually, no, it is, I believe it is an attack on Theed mission. But yeah, as you can see, we're kind of just sitting here, letting the farmers do their thing. Don't know what happens. I might have thought, hey, there's actually a little bit more coming, so I didn't want to like push and accidentally get outflanked or something. But here you can see we made a slight miscalculation. There are those aircraft that I was talking about before, so I start producing some anti-air troopers, some heavy anti-air troopers, and I do believe I tried to start sending them in kind of immediately, but by the time that they're ready, the initial attack force has already kind of fallen, so it does become a lot trickier to. Wow, I mean, I don't know what happens. But here I'm kind of just waiting, I guess, for the anti-air troopers to be completed. And maybe also waiting for resources. No, there's no way we're waiting for resources. Like, other than ore, we've got thousands of everything. Like, I think it's like 4,000... carbon, 3,000 or something ridiculous food, and like 40,000 Nova, I think. It's hard to tell because I'm like viewing this on like a tiny screen in like Premiere Pro, but also like the quality of the text in Battlegrounds isn't amazing. Like, this game was made in, I think, what was it? Was it 2002? I think.
Isn't gonna be bad.
I'll just check that out. We'll ask good old Google. Initial release date was 2001, and there was the Clone Campaign's release in 2002. But yeah, that's a thing that happened. So yeah, like this game probably isn't the best for recording, but it is a game that I really did enjoy when I was younger, and it was one of those games that I kind of wanted to play on the channel. But yeah, as I mentioned earlier, that first wave failed. So what I have done is I've loaded all of my troops up into the Fambaas, and any troops that I'm already producing, I have got automatically coming down to face off against. Basically, they're charging down and they're going to just immediately start attacking. So because I've got all of my troops loaded up into these Fambaas, it's going to be, what's going to happen is the Fambaas going to fall and troops are just going to spawn. Well, not spawn, but they're going to just disembark rather violently. Because I ignored that wave of troops, I've been forced to disembark like all of my infantry in an effort to try and dissuade the enemy from continuing their assault on my anti-aircraft troops. Unfortunately, though, they do knock out all of them, which was, bound to happen. I kind of expected it. But my infantry are falling fairly quickly, just because they're kind of out in the open and they're taking more damage than the shield farmers can protect them from. And of course, like, there's only so much that I can do. But I am just kind of like producing more troops and throwing them at the enemy, because what else am I supposed to do? I do also upgrade the Fambaas a couple of times. So the Gungans have got their own civilization specific upgrade for mechs that increases their health points. But there's also like a general mech upgrade that increases the hit points of a mech even further, which I figured was quite important, especially because I couldn't just build a bunch of cannons. And I'm quite fond of that strategy of just building 10 cannons and setting them up, surrounded by infantry with anti-air infantry behind them, and just sieging an enemy base. Like, what are you going to do when there's like cannons that far outrange anything you've got, protected by infantry that outrange or match the range of anything that you've got, with, you know, a potential threat of something else coming and kind of taking a bite out of you if you did have something that could outrange them. Here I'm kind of using workers to explore the map a little bit further and see if we can find more resources. Like, this was a big thing, right? Like, sure, I could continue pumping out infantry because there's plenty of carbon and there's plenty of food. If a game takes so long that you deplete an entire map, like if it's like a forest map and you deplete it of all of its carbon between you and your opponent and your allies, the game's taken too long. Like, it's just, I'm sorry, but what are you doing taking that long? But yeah, I think, yeah, this was definitely one of those ones where after a while I was just like, do you know what? I have the resources. I have like, I've got map superiority. You know, map dominance. The enemy isn't really attacking me from any other direction but the one. So realistically speaking, as long as I can keep them coming from the one direction, as you can see, we have run out of food, unfortunately. But it's not a huge issue, you know. Like, it hurts a little bit, but I think I had to set up like a food processing center with a bunch of farms around it, and I am pressing more aggressively with my farmers. I think I was trying to take out the shield. I was either trying to take out the shield generator, or I was trying to remove the fortress, because of course if I can remove those, it becomes pretty easy, I think, at the end of the day, to deal with everything else. You know, like, as you can see, I didn't have, well, okay, so you probably wouldn't have seen, but I didn't actually need to replace either of those fortresses once they were repaired. As you can see, they've got a worker trying to repair their fortress, which requires food. But that was the second wave, and it failed, despite how insistent I was with it. Like, I was constantly sending troops through. So I was like, do you know what? That's it. That strategy isn't working. So we're going with Fambaas. We've got Fambaas. I have got the heavy pummels there. And I didn't realize that the enemy had an MTT coming out. If I had, I probably would have kept all of my troops back until I had cleared out the MTT. Unfortunately, that happened. I lost a couple of my AA troops dealing with the aircraft, and I don't know what these Fambaas are doing, but they're doing something funky. And I just basically it's again the same story as before. Just keep producing those troops. You know, as long as I have got the troops coming out, I can fairly easily hold the line while the pummels go to work. I do believe I end up losing the pummels just because they get taken out by everything else, but they deal like a significant amount of damage to everything. And I've got anti-aircraft troops with this this wave of troops, and with this wave, I've also got a medic who'll be moving in. I produced a couple more medics to keep up with everything, and I also produced a couple of shield Fambaas because I was like, okay, well, it'll at least keep them alive that little bit longer. As you can see, they've got like their aircraft and their everything kind of trying to take out those heavy pommels. I think after a while I just leave the heavy pommels to do their thing. Like, what's going to happen? But it is like I'm constantly producing troops. I'm constantly pumping out more troops. And it's, as long as I could pump out troops and vehicles and keep throwing them down at the enemy at like a rate that the enemy couldn't. No, like they were trying for sure, but every time they killed a unit, I produced 2 more. Or, you know, I produced 1 more for the vehicles. The infantry, you know, it's about 2 or 3 for every trooper who died. And of course, you know, now that we've taken out the fortress and the turrets defending the entrance to the Harte Secur proper, I just moving the troops forward, moving everything forward. Just trying to press the advantage that I had, knocking out, you know, significant portions of the enemy's defenses. I switched from advancing to taking out the aircraft factory, because that aircraft factory was really going to be a thorn in my side if I hadn't taken them out. Don't know what happened there. I think it was a mounted trooper or something got too close, and all of my farmers were just like, hey, he's right there. Oop. Yeah, they all died, which was pretty sad, but it happens. I'm also building an animal nursery, and I think that's because, well, initially what I was going to do was I was going to build like a ship, a transport ship, and send him down to just collect them, collect any potential nurse. Oh, the enemy animal nursery there. And I remembered from when I had previously done this recording, because there was like a gap of like an hour or so between recording like the previous attempt at recording this episode and this attempt, where I had destroyed the animal nursery and taken out like half the Fambaas that were not Fambaas but nerfs that were inside it. Here you can see I'm kind of just using the infantry to protect, or not protect, but shield the heavy mechs, and I'm just producing more of them because I'm like, hey, these guys aren't going to last long, but if we can use them to, in theory, take out like a significant portion of the enemy base, particularly that shield generator in the fortress, those were the 2 important things to knock out. I have a feeling that part of the reason why the game, there was like a difference between what the game thought it took me to do this episode and like what the recording actually ended up being, might be because of like how often the game freezes. You know, like there are like these little freezes here and there. But you would have thought that would have meant that the recording was longer, right? I've got no idea what happened. But yeah. There you go, there are all the nerfs. And I quickly tried to move the nerfs out of the way, just because, like, well, if they get caught, they're going to die. And I do believe I lose 1 or 2 of the nerfs, just to the Fambaas. If I was to do this again, what I probably would have done is I would have loaded the nerfs into a Fambaa and used the Fambaa to transport them back. Yeah, there goes a nerf. There goes 2 nerfs. 3 nerves. Yeah, probably would have loaded them up into like a Fambaa or something. Or maybe built like a couple of air transports. But I didn't. So, yeah, that happened. Now I'm taking out the enemy cannon. Trying to. It's all really about keeping on top of the food and the carbon. I know I've said it like a bunch of times in this episode alone, but it really is just about keeping on top of that food and that carbon. Because as long as you can continue producing standard infantry, you don't have to worry nearly as much about. You don't have to worry nearly as much about the enemy trying to attack you with everything that they have. Well, they will attack you with everything they have, but it's not so bad, particularly if you can set up like fortresses at key choke points. But really, it just becomes a matter of wiping out, well, the shield generator first, but then the command center, which is the final objective of this mission. If you guys are enjoying this episode, this series, make sure that you hit that subscribe button down below and the notification bell as well, so that you can be notified again every time I upload an episode of either this series or any other series. I've got a bunch of them going at the moment that I'm really enjoying, and I'm hoping that you guys are all enjoying them as well. Also, make sure that you hit that like button and the comment down below if you see any glaring mistakes that I have made, and share it with your friends. Until next time, keep being awesome, everyone, and stay safe.
Mr. Your humble servant. Hey ho!
We Gungans were ready to do our part in the Maxi Big War. Ending of record.